We're live and we're ready. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and once again, we are SkyWire. And I want to introduce our phenomenal. It's not even, I don't even want to call us a panel. We're just a group of friends, soul friends, loved ones. We're not just a panel. We're people that we're travelers. We're traveling on this path together, and we invite you to travel with us. So here's one traveler, Dave. Hey, Dave.
Hi, I just muted my microphone then, Dave. Yeah, hi.
Dave.
Yeah, good to be
Okay.
here.
And
Nice to be a fellow
Elaine.
traveller.
Yeah, a fellow traveler. And Elaine, who has been traveling and has found her way home. Hey.
Oh, it's been many a moon since I've been here. It feels so nice to be back at home with my family, my SkyWire family.
It's nice to have you here. And Heidi and Mark. Hey.
Oh, hello. We are here
again.
as ever.
As almost always.
Almost always.
Yes, you are. And Gail.
Hey there, everybody. Great to be here.
Good to have you. And Katrina. Hello, honey.
Hi. It really is good to be here today. It's good juju. I could feel it.
Good juju. That's a great way to say it. She's so good with words, isn't she? Even the ones that aren't even in the dictionary. I don't know. Maybe it is.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Put a little, you know what, in a hashtag next to it, and it'll make it into the dictionary. Hashtag dictionary. And Margarita, hey.
Hi.
Hey. And thank you so much, Margarita, for joining me on my my other show, Breaking Free Show. It's lovely to have you.
It was awesome. I was so blown away by the number of viewers.
Yeah, it's a pretty good show. So thanks for being there, and you made it happen. So today we are exploring and enjoying not having anything specific other than the theme of listening when we come to the show in the last couple of weeks. Sometimes I come up with something that has been talking to me, and I'll say, okay, if it's talking to me, maybe it's talking to other people, and I bring it here, and we'll expand it, explore it, discuss it, try to figure it out, you know, give our opinions, try to understand something a little more, and take it to a deeper level. But listening, you know, so many people look at listening as just a simple conversation. Do I hear you? Do you hear me? But it's so much deeper and greater than just that. That in itself is huge. And maybe all the listening we do is just for that. I don't know. But listening goes deeper and deeper. So today I've come here with, are you listening? And no specific agenda. Then this morning it dawned on me, is no agenda an agenda? So I don't know if we want to open up with that or not, but I'm opening the floor here to anything anybody wants to talk about, anything that's going on in your life. I'm getting, what is that? What is that? Yes, Mark.
Thank you. Trying to be noticed here. I actually have something to say about listening today.
Okay,
yes.
Good. You want to start?
And it's because I have this German wife, you know, and we go visit her relatives, and they talk in German. And I know about a dozen words of German, but that includes Gesundheit and also guter Hund, meaning good dog. Yes. So I do a lot of listening at these meetings, and it's very interesting to see what I do notice, even though I don't understand what they're saying necessarily. The interactions between people, the intonations, the who's quiet, who's speaking, you know, what are the patterns of conversation, which reflects the relationships between these various people. And it's a funny thing that I've noticed very frequently, that even if I don't understand the words, which is always, I generally know when to laugh. and it's just really, really amazing and fun, and they accept me that way. They're not. Oh, they say you should learn some German, but they don't really expect me to, and it's and I'm part of the family, and it feels really nice, just as that.
So you're connecting on what level?
Well, well, however else I communicate, through my attention, through my attitude, through my interest, through my off-the-wall remarks that come in without necessarily any connection to the conversation because I don't know what they're saying, and just a kind of lovely tolerance of me. Sometimes I feel like the pet dog, but but it's very nice. It's very nice indeed.
So thank you for sharing that, because that is an interesting thing. Because even though we, all of us in this family here speak English, right? So you assume that because we're speaking a similar language that we understand each other, but we don't always. So regardless of the language, be it the same or not, connecting on the heart, which is where I'm just guessing Mark and Heidi's family are connecting. That's where you understand each other. So it doesn't matter the language as long as you're listening. It doesn't matter the culture. It doesn't really matter the gender as long as you listen and you connect. So,
well, we connect on the stomach as well as the heart.
We went to a restaurant yesterday together in the lake, and it was very good. So
Wonderful.
Food is always a good way to get there, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so who's got it? Who wants to take it from there? And I want to welcome everyone that's listening right now to us. We're glad you're here. We're thrilled you're here. We want you to partake in this conversation. It's an open dialogue. If you've got something about listening that you want to share with us, by all means, bring it on, because we want to hear from you. So who's got something next?
I do. I'd like to pipe on in next.
Go right ahead.
Okay. As Mark was speaking, the image that came to mind, what he was talking about, being in a circumstance where, that sensibility or that sensitivity wasn't there to be able to understand that language. It was kind of like, just one of the 5 physical senses being missing. If your eyesight is diminished, and I'm sure Gail can talk about this a lot, given her experiences with Brandy Raris, if the hearing is diminished, then all the other types of sensitivities and sensibilities are gonna up level and shift to inform you, and you'll kind of naturally know what to gravitate to. You'll do it automatically to gain a sense of meaning and a sense of connection. The way I imaged that also was like an electronic equalizer. If you're listening to music, or maybe you have a radio and you can select whether you want to turn up the bass or turn up the treble, so you experience the music in a way that feels really good. You can kind of crank up one of those frequencies of vibration to have what seems like a well-matched experience. So I loved how Mark just happened to start talking about that. The other interesting thing about this word, an equalizer, it must have been in the early 1990s where one of my primary sources of guidance, inspired guidance, talked about this time in human history being the time of the great equalizer. Interesting. And I didn't think of it really in terms of technical or musical, but I was very curious about that. I've now come to understand that, and I do believe we're at this time in human history where all of our the differences which we tend to notice and highlight from the ego frame of reference, they're in a very natural process of being undone. And so that we experience ourselves more and more from this place of agendaless being. I'm done.
Wow. So who wants to take it from here? That's pretty cool. Go ahead, Margarita. Was that your hand up?
Yes, it was my hand, and I just wanted to say, well-matched experience. Quoting Elaine here, you see, we are all here as a little happy faces, and there's love all around. You know, I love that expression. Well-matched experience. So we should have VMWME, VMEs. We should have VMEs a lot of the time. That's when the listening is exalted.
Uh-huh. That's cool. Very cool. Thank you for that. Okay. Who's next? And who else has yeah, go ahead, Gail.
I'll jump in.
Okay.
I really appreciated what you said, Elaine, and about the agendaless. And this also goes to before, where is not having an agenda being having an agenda. That whole conversation just has a lot of meaning for me, because just with my own inner work and my spiritual practice, I never put that word to it, agenda, but I think for me, what my inquiry is about is in life. This doesn't have to do with going to work and surviving, and you have to have an agenda and take care of yourself. I'm not talking about like the sort of like life or survival kind of things. But putting that aside, I think my stance that I like to take is having is being agendaless. Because I think when we are agendaless, that really is when we're the most open. And that's when we can receive guidance, and I think that's when the listening is stronger or strongest, when we don't have an agenda. Because when we have an agenda, as soon as we have an agenda, we're limiting something, and that's not always a bad thing. I mean, when you're having a business meeting, you have to have an agenda, otherwise it's going to, it depends on your intention. But anyway, I think, do you know what I'm saying? That I think that being agendaless is a good place to be, because it's about being open. So if a person wants to be open, is that an agenda? You know what I mean? Is my agenda to be open? I don't think so. I mean, and I don't want to sort of nitpick with words, but it's more of like a way of being or a choice of being. I don't know. I think an agenda is much more, I don't know, sort of like nitty-gritty, down and dirty, but when you're sort of expanding the conversation or expanding an exploration of life, that agendaless is good. Did that make any sense?
Yeah. And so it made me want to think about, so like the universe. Does the universe have an agenda? Do we have to tap into that agenda?
Well, that's interesting. Like creation. Does creation have an agenda, or is it for just the sake of creation, the sake of play? Like when you play. This is interesting. I'll just say one more thing. There's such a difference between games and playing. And kids, when they're really young, they start out, they play, and they don't have an agenda. They're just open, and this comes and that comes, and it's like this divine way of being, because they're just so open, and they're in the moment, and they're having fun. But then games, you get older, and it's a whole other ball game with games, because then you do have an agenda, and then you're not so much in the moment. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it's much more focused or limiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Katrina.
You know, it's been really interesting hearing what everyone said so far because it sort of popped two words into my mind, which is curiosity versus fear. So if you're doing what Elaine was suggesting earlier and what Mark was saying in terms of like what senses are really alive for you, like how are you processing information or how can you take in information? Well, how you did that when you were 5 isn't going to be how you can do that at 15 because you've learned some things that maybe you shut down and you don't listen in that same way. So I think that there's a really big invitation when you have no agenda to stay curious. And that curiosity leads you to listen differently. And I think also tune into your body more and listen to that. Listen to maybe some of the nuances in what people are saying. Whereas in the same way, fear, I believe, shuts people down. In terms of, I can't listen to that because I'm afraid. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I really listened to this piece of insight, this information, what my body's telling me, I may not like that and I'm afraid of it. So I think it's really interesting to also look at those pieces and say, how is curiosity inviting me to listen differently, and how is fear making me not listen in the ways that maybe could be closing off opportunities or opening my heart?
Well, it's like what Mark was saying, right?
Yeah.
Kind of going back right to what Mark was saying.
Yeah.
He's allowing himself to be open
mm-hmm.
with just being open. That's his agenda. Just be open and to not allow fear to get in his way of connecting with Heidi's family.
Exactly.
Right? That's a great example.
Well, I get some fear sometimes.
Yeah, Mark. You get some fear?
Yeah. In the past couple of days, Heidi has been getting very interested in Blab, this new social media that is sort of taking things by storm at the moment. And at breakfast this morning, she just casually suggested to me, oh, why don't you start one, Mark, for men over 50? This is right at the beginning. You could get a start, on the ground floor here with something very unique. And I immediately shut down. I didn't respond. No. So that was not curiosity. That was, oh my God, something else to do. Jesus.
You understood my words in this case, and the words make fear.
That's really true. That's a really good point right there, because there was a button pushed.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
And that button was beyond that, really, the fear, but then beyond the fear of what was possible.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? That it could work. Dave. Yeah.
Even if it could work. I wasn't listening.
Yeah, but you're bringing it up.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking, so it's somewhere in your processing. You're not done with it yet.
I know.
Dave, you've been sitting there writing notes. What are you writing?
No, I write down what everybody says. Because I just make some very sort of brief notes for me. As I said before, I hear things on here and I think that's a new perspective to me, So I think I'll go and research it or think about it some more and write something about it. And I deal with agendas. People that have agendas. There's really a set of rules or protocols that if something doesn't fit that agenda, we tend to discard it because it doesn't fit our criteria. If we have an agenda to do something, we have to do it in a particular way by using those rules and protocols. And an agenda in a meeting this is a set list of things that we are going to talk about. And I spent many years in the corporate world with blue chip companies. I was a national sales trainer and director of a cable TV company. It was owned by Comcast. And it was very structured, very strict meetings. And when I got a little bit of power in there, I just changed everything and become a little bit more productive by freeing up people. By taking an agenda away. And every office I've got, and certainly this one here, is not constrained and it's not controlled by an agenda. There's freedom. We work on a ethic of organised chaos stroke controlled madness, which every time ideas come up, and if you've got an agenda in a meeting, you think, well, where can I drop in this bombshell that I've got? And it doesn't fit anywhere. It's like trying to fit a puzzle of the Hoover Dam, a piece of the Hoover Dam puzzle, into the San Francisco Bridge puzzle. You can't put it somewhere, so you carry it around with you a bit longer until you find a time to express it. Agendas with people limit them because it precludes them from accepting whatever comes their way. And when we accept whatever comes our way, and we see these instances, these messages, these signs as not necessarily good or bad, but just as a toy that we can play with and see what's in it and unwrap it, that's when we've got no agenda. If we can walk through the world without any agenda, we become more powerful, I think, because we have that air and we have that persona about us that at any moment I could walk away from this. At any moment it doesn't hold me. So I need to be contained by you telling me something that's going to pique my interest. Not you have to do this like this on this day because of. With no agenda, we become free, and when we're a person with no agenda, we have no restraint on what we can do. And I always equate it with a quote. I think it's Heidegger. I keep trotting it out, but we pursue that which retreats from us. And if you're the sort of person, if you're the kind of person and you're a kind of business when you are where you are quite happy to step back because I don't need to do this, I can do something else. That makes you unique. That makes you a quantifiable commodity, because everybody works within controls and rules and protocols or agendas. If you have no agenda, it's like having a motive. You will never ever catch somebody if they have no motive for murdering somebody else, because there's no connection. But if there's a motive, you'll find it. Exactly the same as you will find the agenda, why you did something or why you accepted something, because it fit into the mold or the shape that you've already created.
Dave, I want to ask you something. I want to interject something. So while you're saying that, I'm thinking, okay, so agenda for someone who is structured and, just controlled and maybe one of those micromanagers or very much into detail, their agenda could be very different than when we expand the agenda into a listener. Might be more of maybe a purpose or a mission.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It might be.
Or when you're in that mode of productivity.
Yeah.
Maybe your agenda becomes more specific. We all time management, productivity. We have to get things done. We wake up today. We have our list, right? But in the scheme of things, we have missions. We have purposes. Your purpose is to help people transition. Elaine's laugh. What is, and that becomes an agenda.
Well, it's like having a road trip from New York, say, to Orlando. You're going to drive down the East Coast, and you plot that route. So there's your agenda. You're going to go this route. You're going to get on this road. You're going to stay on that road till you get here. You're going to go through here. You're going to get on that road, and then you get there. And you work it all out time-wise. Now, a lot of people will get caught up on the motorway, the freeway, in a traffic jam. Now their agenda is being threatened, but they will stay on that road. They won't take a different alternate route. But a person with no agenda will just get to Orlando, however. And if it takes them longer, if it takes them less time, if they go a circuitous route around, they'll still get there. That's fine. The objective is still met. But the people with a fixed agenda in life have already decided how they're going to get somewhere and when, via what route, and God help you if you interfere with that.
So, okay, so here's a good case in point. So Nicole has just joined us, so we're so happy to have her. So I have a question for Nicole. So my question for Nicole is she was just finally able to get here, which is great. Well, anytime you come, it's good by me. My question to Nicole is, you had stuff to do. Was this part of your agenda, was to come here today to be on the show, no matter what? I mean, we're talking about having an agenda, being agendaless. What is an agenda? And that was not the agenda. The agenda was for today's show, no agenda. So we started talking about this. So my question to Nicole is, how did this fit in today? Did you make this happen because it was part of your agenda, or what? And I'd love to hear what she has to say. And for those of you that are listening, share with us your thoughts and your thinking about, this notion of being open. How do you use agendas? Are you like, my agenda is my agenda, I can't budge? Or is it, I have this agenda, it's my loose structure. If I do it, great. Some things I will have to. And then if other things fall off the wayside and I don't have to do them, I don't do them. How do you look at agendas? And how does that keep you open and listening? Margarita, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. This is cool, talking about agendas. And of course, when you have a clear agenda about something that you want to do, that's a clear agenda. But what's messing up the whole thing is our inner hidden agendas about what we are going to do, because depending on our beliefs and fears and stuff like that, that compromises the way we can listen, the way we actually behave, and it also restricts our flexibility and the freedom we have to actually follow what we openly in our mind think we are doing. But it's inhibited by the hidden agenda that we don't really know about. So I just wanted to bring that note into the discussion.
Cool. Good note.
Exactly. I wanted to add to that, because I also was thinking agenda is one thing, and we have an agenda in life all the time. We need to have an agenda. As you said, we have to get up, otherwise, stay in bed. But what is the problematic thing is a hidden agenda, and it is an agenda which is rigid, which is planned out in every second, every minute, every detail. The agenda in itself is nothing bad. It depends of the quality of the agenda, if it is visible, if it is clear, and how flexible it is. And so I thank you, Margarita. You were addressing that. Mark is burning to say something?
Burning? Well, anyway, I was thinking about how to sabotage this agenda business that I'm familiar with. I can be laying in bed in the morning, waking up, and I got to do this, 4 things, okay, that's reasonable, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then I get up, and the actual day begins, and things not on the agenda appear out of nowhere, or from her, and I can be really incensed. But I give in to the deviation from my agenda that I have to do. And what can happen, is they become excuses for me not doing my business. And I can blame them on other circumstances. And sorry, I didn't get done with our plan. Too bad. Yeah, especially if people were counting on me getting those things done.
So what does it mean in terms of listening? To whom are you listening then?
Oh, to whom am I listening? I'm listening to cracks in this wall that I can escape through. Yeah. Yeah.
See, this is all about listening, isn't it? How we move those agendas, how we how we hear those agendas, how we are flexible in those agendas. It's all about agenda. Listen, there's some comments out here. Does anybody have them besides me? Because I'll put them up. Anybody have any?
Well, I've got one here. I'm looking at my iPhone because I have absolutely no idea how to switch from screen to screen. So I've got it here. And it's from Jeremy Murphy, who says, hello. So hi, Jeremy. The key to optimizing our agendas is flexibility, but it changes at every moment, sometimes in dramatic and exciting ways. Nicole has put a comment up saying, I'm more of a loose structure agenda keeper. I always make time for what is important to me. I don't let myself be controlled by my agenda. I love flexibility. I just wondered if anybody has got a definition of agenda. What is agenda?
It's good. That's a good question. You mean like what is like Webster say?
Yeah. What is if you were saying I've got an agenda? What is it that you've actually got? What does agenda mean?
Things to do. It's just a Latin word that means things to do.
Yeah.
Okay, it does.
To act, agire.
So Latin translation is the things that must be done.
Yeah.
Now it's really a to-do list. And like anything in life, as Nicole alludes to there about flexibility, whoever has flexibility in a situation controls the situation because you're willing to duck and dive, bob and weave. Now, a list of to-do things, I have a to-do list every day, but if I don't complete it all, what I didn't complete goes to the top of the list the next day. It's not fixed, and I will do all of the things on there that I can, but outside influences, as we said earlier on, preclude us from completing our to-do list stroke agenda. So it's not a fixed thing, but we have to allow for the fact that other outside hidden agendas, as we said earlier, and other outside decisions that people make stop us. It could be one of the things on our list is to speak to Mr. or Mrs. X at a company the next day, and that's important, so that's at the top of my list. And you ring the next day and they're off sick. So you can't complete that. Some people get caught up in the fact that their agenda has been knocked out of shape. Oh, their to-do list, I failed. You know, you haven't. It's the world, it's life, it's the universe is moving everything around in your favor, but you just don't realize that. You think, I failed. It's not a question of whether or not you've got it right or wrong. It's not a question of whether you've succeeded or failed. It's just everything around you is pulling you back like an arrow in a bow. The only way you can fire an arrow at a target is by pulling it back. And if you feel yourself being pulled back by something, the chances are the universe is about to launch you really fast at something that's going to be beneficial to you. So you have to be ready.
Interesting. A lot to think about there. I'm still processing some of what you said. And
I have a question.
Go.
Do you think that how we listen is impacted by other people's hidden agendas? Like if you can sense in some way that someone has a hidden agenda, does that change how you listen, what you listen to, maybe your actions and what you do?
Well, I think it might change your actions, but listening is the king. It's the queen. It's everything. So even if somebody has, a hidden agenda and you can hear it, you listen for what to do next. You listen to how to handle that hidden agenda. I mean, it's the ruler. It's our gauge. So nothing, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I think for people that maybe are practicing listening, they're not as good as trusting what they hear for themselves. When you are aware of someone else's hidden agenda, it may not necessarily be as clear from a self-guidance standpoint how to handle that.
Well, and that's a really good point, because the more confident we become, the clearer those hidden agendas are, and the more we know whether or not that we need to take a piece of what that agenda is if it fits us. If it doesn't fit us, then we know what to discard. So this is interesting because when I posted this quote, every week I post a quote as part of the show. Not that it's the quote that we even talk about. We don't even usually even talk about those quotes. It's just a place to kind of, start the show. So I posted this quote: "Nothing ever goes away until it teaches us what we need to know." And Dave's, and I just posted it, right? It just meant, nothing goes away. Blah, blah, blah. I heard something in there. Dave started posting about failures and about, how you handle failure. It doesn't go away until blah, blah, blah. I didn't hear that. Now, that doesn't mean that's not there. It doesn't mean that I have to take that on as what I even see in here. Mm-hmm. It just means that's what he saw. And Nicole saw something in that too, or in his comment. She commented about it, right, Nicole? I didn't see that in the quote, but I saw the intelligence of his comment, and I could work with that. So this show wasn't about failure. It wasn't the idea I had, the agenda, somewhat, but it's where it went on some level. It's not for me to control it. It's just how it went. So it was very interesting. And so, what does it mean to have a hidden agenda? Is it that they're destructive, or is it that somebody's not strong enough, hasn't listened hard enough to make that agenda not hidden? Or maybe sometimes we have to hide some things because it's the good of the good.
Yeah, I think it's all those things. I think sometimes people aren't aware they have a hidden agenda because they're driven by what Dave was saying, which is failure, their fear of failure. So they already have that hidden agenda, even if they're not necessarily expressing it, because they're trying to meet a specific end. But I think for a lot of folks, it is transparency. They don't trust themselves, so the agenda that they have is mainly because they are not grounded and centered. They aren't really sure. So it sort of is a mix between I'm doing this outwardly, but I also have this hidden agenda, and it feels a little jumbled, I think, even within them, because they aren't clear on what they want and how they want to create.
Right. So I'm going to say, when you say this, and I'm seeing Mark now exemplify this conversation of not having a hidden agenda, because Mark has opened up the conversation Mark has not done before. And he was ready to go. And I really acknowledge you for that, Mark, because I know in the past you haven't done that. And it's like there's some kind of growth or something happening that is really powerful that I'm watching.
Coming out of invisibility.
Yes.
Well, and perhaps so, yeah. But of course, from my point of view, it isn't so much. I'm aware of the self-disclosure that's going on, but it brings up other layers of, for example, hidden agendas. Like I was talking about sabotaging myself earlier, because maybe I didn't want to do those things anyway, and here's these wonderful excuses for why I can't get it done. So one disclosure begets other layers to investigate.
That's learning, isn't it? That's life.
Yeah.
So we don't have to. So there's like, Katrina is, maybe some of what you're saying is that there's like this community agenda, whatever the community looks like, and do we attach ourselves because that's everybody's agenda? So if we don't trust ourselves, that's the only agenda we can hear. Or do we hear our own agenda, our own reason, our own purpose for things? Elaine, you have something, Elaine, right? Elaine, can you hear me? I don't know if she can hear me. So,
well, just to speak to that, I think that the community aspect of it is part of it, but I also think that we're also in terms of the community vibe, we're all being encouraged to stand up and be ourselves.
Yes.
But not everyone has the tools to understand how to listen to them, to their bodies, to their spiritual side, to their own voice, and know how to mesh that with the community. So I think it's more about first the individual and saying, how do I connect with what's true for me, and realize that I'm free to think what I want and feel what I want, and it doesn't have to have a specific agenda. I can just
Okay,
be.
so right now is a perfect time, if you want to, is to start with step one, because and this is interesting because we jump all around, right? We go from the one, step two of how to, and then we've gone into the most profound places you can be, where I'm like grabbing hold, listening, like to understand, right? Like Dave always says. So now maybe we need to go back a little, and maybe now is a good time to say, okay, when you, as an individual, how do you listen to listen?
Okay, that's my cue. Can I jump in? Because I wanted to bring this conversation back to having a hidden agenda, and then something that Marilyn, you said about, but it's really the listen. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Am I? Oh, okay. About that, it's the listening that really is king or queen, whatever it is. This is a specific example of something that happened. My husband and I were having a conversation this morning, and he said something to me that, well, it was a little hurtful, and I also really, in my heart of hearts, I felt that he had a hidden agenda with that comment that he made. And I could tell by his energy, and we've had conversations around this before. And so I think when he made that comment, and this is just I know him very well, but this is my humble opinion. I think that when he made that comment, that he wasn't really aware of what he was doing, because I don't think he really wanted to hurt me purposefully. But anyway, so he made that comment. So then it was like, okay, well, what do I do about it? So he left to go to work. And then I wanted to call him on the phone right away and have this, conversation about it. But then, like, the listening, it was like, do I really need, is this really what I need to do now? No. I listened, and the listening said, no, that's not what you need to do. And then, like, 2 minutes later, oh, but I got to call him. Maybe I'll call him at work when he gets there. And I kept on, like, well, who wanted a call? You know what I mean? Like, what part of me wanted a call? And I realized that I think it was the part that was hurt, that it was like I had to make it right. Like, I couldn't sit with the fact that it was like this agenda. You know what I mean? Like, I had to, like, make it right. But then the listening just kept saying, well, wait a minute, which is really powerful? And I wanted to bring up the word about being empowered before, especially Dave, when you were talking about being agendaless, and you were saying that it is there's more freedom, and then you didn't say it, you described it in terms of being more powerful or being more empowered, but you didn't use that word, and that word just happens to speak to me. But so I realized that the powerful part of me did not have to pick up the phone and call him and whatever, make him realize it, become aware, in this moment. The powerful part of me said, that's okay. You can just go about your day and know who you are and be in your own power, and know that you can tell him tonight before we go to bed. And so it was the listening, like he had the agenda, and then I guess part of me had my own agenda, right? I had to make it right. But it was the listening that helped me to see where my true power lied in that moment. It's like being in the present moment it's fine to have an agenda, as long as the agenda, we're flexible, as long as it could be changed when the listening tells us at any given moment, no, maybe you better do this now. What's really needed in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Elaine.
I'm going to go back to responding to the whole thing about when you're in a dynamic where it seems like there's a hidden agenda. If you're responding to another person and it's like you're sensing there's something they want to prove, there's something they need to feel safe with, or particularly they really have a need to feel like they're right about something. Our choice is always to ask ourselves, do I want to be right, or do I want to be happy? Because if I'm truly listening and connected with my own core, I'm going to recognize whoever I'm with, they're always going to be operating from their own best leading edge. And I can forgive them for that or accept them for that, and if I'm listening, respond. Sometimes, and this is a quote that I love, it's the ego has no defense for disregard. So if I'm kind of noticing this person kind of has an agenda, if I choose to not be in my place of having to make me right over them right, and I'm happy, then I'm in a place where I'm being ego-free, I'm being agendaless, and that dynamic might help them move at whatever timeline they feel they're ready to move, to take a different perspective or pay attention to something deeper. Now, all of this is much easier said than done. Especially with our spouses, especially with the people that we've made agreements with, because there's basically something that we each need to learn, and that's why we're together. And I guess this weaves back to the quote, Marilyn, that started this whole thing off. It's like something will go away or disappear when you no longer need to learn from it. That doesn't mean that's another person who's going to leave your life. Sometimes what's going to disappear is just that old ego frame of reference that had to be right and that needed to protect itself and needed to defend itself. And instead, there's been this growth, this shift, really born of operating from this deepest place of love. And then, wow, then you open up, back to what Katrina was saying, this more curious place. What's this day going to be like with this guy over here? Might some joy pop up? Might me not be bugged if what I thought was going to happen today with the both of us or on my work plan, I'm going to realize that my safety, my sense of happiness, my sense of fulfillment doesn't depend on something in the future being exactly how I think it's going to be. It's like it's always okay.
It's always
what is, and that's because I have a growing sense of the I that I am is not this puny individuated self. The greatest I that I am is connected with the dance of everything else.
So
Done.
I want to that was great. And I want to bring it back some to what you all have been saying and this notion of hidden agendas. Many of you are facilitating shows, right? So you start out, regardless of whether you have an agenda or not, your agenda is to facilitate. I had to facilitate a meeting last week with 30 women doing their 30-second commercial, a presentation. I had to do it in an hour. So my agenda was to get it done in an hour. Now I had to listen. I wanted to listen. So there was the dance that Elaine spoke about, right? Same thing here. My agenda is to have some kind of a cool flow, the best that I can. Everybody talks. Hopefully our audience, our listeners are engaged. I'm thinking about them. I'm listening to this. I'm listening to that. But at the same time, we got to let it go. So step one in listening is to recognize your ego. And I don't know if that's step 1 or it's step 5, but in this moment, it's the first thing that's coming to me. So I'm going to take it as step 1. Listen for your ego. What is ego? It's understanding your ego. It's understanding the need to be right. Step 1, maybe. Step 2, maybe, is listening and not saying anything, not having to be right like Gail was talking about. What else would you say to our listeners, our audience, whenever they find this show? What would be another step? A step. Maybe we need to dissect ego. I don't know. Margarita, what's another step?
Well, if we don't make a stand for the truth, then we end up like some prisoners in the war camp in Vietnam or whatever it was, that created an infrastructure inside of that war camp or prison camp. And then at the end of the war, they were even worse than the prison guards and the people who have set it in, as put them in this camp. And if we don't stand up to actually speak up for the truth about, so that we can say, I don't believe this is true because it hurts me, or I don't believe this is how it really is, from a point of that we're not right about it, but that is our view of it.
Okay.
And not trying to erase the other person and say that they're wrong, right?
Okay, that's great. So like what occurred with Dave and I originally with the quote and the concept of failure, I didn't see it. Didn't make me right or wrong. Didn't make him right or wrong. There was no right or wrong. Everything's just fine. So when you're listening, it's acknowledging what you feel. Getting closer and closer, listening closer and closer to how you feel about something. And where's it coming from? I mean, it is hard to tell somebody, all of you, where you start. I guess maybe you just start anywhere. I mean, where would you tell people to start? Heidi.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit distracted. I have a mosquito jumping around here, and
okay, but that's honest. Go ahead. That's honest.
I would start to kill the mosquito.
Honesty.
We have another agenda.
Okay, but that's honesty. So maybe step 1, just like you said about truth, is being honest, is acknowledging to someone, I don't see that. I don't understand that. I don't agree with that. Maybe that's step 1. The mosquito.
Absolutely, and not hiding behind, walking on eggshells because you fear that the person might, not like you anymore or something when you see what really the truth is. I think it is essential to saying the truth, but not in a German way. German way would be a bang, 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 bang.
Well, this is interesting how the show has evolved.
He is teaching me that because I'm often a little bit too
brusque.
So, but for me, the truth is always very important. I could have invented something now when you asked me, and I didn't listen the last 2 sentences because I was, but I wouldn't.
But that's listening. You listened, regardless of you listened to something. It may not have been the answer to my question, but you heard something that was important for this moment. And you showed something better than we could have even have described it. Because obviously it's hard to say what the first step is, because from where you come from. So in this case, the first step very well can be, is that truth? Is that honesty?
Marilyn, I'm sorry. I'm a little confused. When you want us to talk about what the first step is, Are you talking about the first step when you're dealing with somebody that has a hidden agenda? I didn't know what the first step was
Just
relating
to
to.
listening, to opening up to listening, opening up for that practice, which I think I heard from when Katrina was starting to speak about, not everybody's coming from it and from of a place, and from people don't even know how to start. So I think, Dave.
Yeah, and I was wondering, as well, like Gal, if it's about listening, I think one of the main factors of it is immediacy. It's being in the now, in the present. A lot of people spend their lives where they're at home, but their mind is at work, and other people are at work and their mind is at home. They're not thinking and they're not connecting with what they're doing. But when somebody is speaking to you, you have to be in the moment with them right now. You have to be present with them. And like a lot of things in life, we only have now. We had a past, but we think about the future and we plan into the future. But what we deal with now is really all that we've got. I think also one of the factors that we need to deal with is about time. It's about now is the right time to listen. Now is the best time to do something. If we've got an agenda, as we started with, an agenda would stop us from doing something right now and acting in an immediate way. The right time is always in the future, unless we check ourselves on that train of thought. Usually that train of thought is disguised as after I or you or we do X, then it will be the right time. Or after X occurs, then it will be the right time to do this. Well, the guise also includes gathering a load of information, gathering a plan, figuring it out. But since now is the only time that we have in reality for anything, and now will never ever seem to be the right time to do something, you may as well do it now anyway. And even though this isn't the right time, given that the right time will never come, acting now is, at the least, powerful. And as Gail said earlier about ringing her husband, some people would have left it until later, but Gail did it now. Most people wait for the decisive moment, whereas people of power are decisive in the moment. And that moment is now. So if we've got somebody that wants us to listen to them, we have to do it now. We can't just say to them, look, tell me, and then I'll go away and think about it, and then I'll come back. They want it now. And so I think it's immediacy. And if we have an agenda, we can't do that, because things that occur that get in the way of that agenda, we tend to think, because it's not in my agenda, I can't do it now. But we have to throw the agenda aside and work in the now.
So here's a summing up that I just heard, which kind of made me laugh. So I'm laughing because the universe just sent me a message, I think. And the message is, it's interesting because in this show today, there was a lot of can you explain this or understanding this? When you are there doing that, we are really listening. Listening because you're listening to yourself and you're listening beyond that hidden agenda. When you question, you're breaking free from your hidden agenda, from thinking you understand to maybe not understanding. Does that make sense? So, how Mark started us off with not being able to communicate, but yet communicating and looking beyond the words, and how we're ending up with talking about agenda, talking about being agendaless, is when you don't understand, like what just happened with Gail asking me, questioning me about what I said was perfect. Because I may not say every word in a concept that everybody will understand. I might understand it, but it's great if you didn't and you say so. It was great when Heidi said the bug was in her way. And that's all being in that present moment. And a beautiful way to begin listening. The honesty of it being able to express that you don't have to be right. That's listening. Final words from anybody.
Be curious.
And yes, and be exactly. Be curious.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be right, you can't be curious.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect point. Anything else?
You know that
Yeah.
saying, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans?
But
Talk about having an agenda, right?
you have to stick to. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yeah,
All
me.
right.
I'll just say this whole thing about it weaves back into curiosity. I love this quote. Love is the act of love is letting in that which is real in each and everything. So when it looks like somebody's got an agenda going on, you just say, what's the love that's really going on here?
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Well, I really appreciate everybody speaking today and coming from your truths, because this is growth. I can feel today has been an extraordinary, some kind of climax of truth that we've been working towards, experiencing, expressing, like kind of growing with each other, and we just showed some great truth today. So for all of you that have been listening, watching, have grabbed hold of this show today, you've been privy to something else. So with that, I bid you all adieu. And for everybody that's been listening and chatting, Jeremy and Nicole, we thank you so much for showing up in the comment tracker. And for those of you that have been listening and haven't done that, that's great too. So it all works. We're happy to have you any way you show up. So with that, we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.